Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are both free to download and both free to use. Of course, there's one more way you can consume the show on a daily basis, and that is by watching it anywhere you scroll. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. Do have one guest, very excited. Former Denver Broncos, Super Bowl 50 champion TJ Ward will be joining me in less than 20 minutes. So make sure you're around for that. The rest of the time, it's you and me at 719-247-1313. You could call or text into the show using those two numbers, or if you're watching the show anywhere you scroll, simply drop a comment right there. Allow me to just pick up where Jim Rome left off, because it is getting a little ridiculous here as we continue to wait and wait and wait. And the question on everyone's mind right now is, where in the NBA will Bismack Biyombo be playing next year? I mean, how long have we been doing this? We've been doing this for 3 weeks, Bismack. Make your decision. Marjon Beauchamp, where are you playing? Just get off the couch, make a decision, and let us move on with our lives. And they aren't the only free agents that we're still waiting on. Bismack Biyombo and Marjon Beauchamp. We're waiting on a few others. One of them, LeBron James, still haven't figured out where he's going yet. Do you ever have this? Has this ever happened to you? So this happens to me constantly. So I just want to know if it's a defect of mine, which there are many, so I wouldn't be surprised, or this is the normal human condition. So you ever decide that you're going to do something or go somewhere, right? Like a trip, or like maybe it's plans for the weekend. Oh, I'm going to go. The Odyssey is playing, right? I'm going to go to the theater this weekend. And I'm going to go see the Odyssey. But you can't or won't make that decision for a certain amount of time. Well, I got to wait till my next paycheck comes in just to budget, see if I can afford it. Or I got to wait and see how the first couple of days of the week at work go, if I'm going to be in the mood. And you set this arbitrary timeline on making this decision for one reason or another. And then as you get closer, that timeline actually is up. First couple of days of the week of work go by, or the kids get out of school, or that next paycheck hits your bank account, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going on that trip. I'm not going to go see the movie this weekend, whatever the case may be. If that's happened to you, like it happens to me all the time, I find that the reason is because if you wait, the longer you wait, the more you talk yourself out of something. Right? And I admire the people who I have people in my family, friends of mine who are like this. They decide they're going to do something and they go do it. I'm going on a trip. I'm leaving Thursday, book the tickets, boom, 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 and they're off. I feel like they're much happier in their lives than I am. But I feel like the longer I wait, if I set an arbitrary deadline of I'm not going to fully decide yet, don't need to decide yet. I want to wait for the right moment. And then you get there and you look back and you're like, I've just been talking myself out of this for the last few days. I wonder if that's happening with LeBron right now. Rich Paul could say all he wants, that it's not about having the collective attention of the sports world on him. It absolutely is. Come on. Be honest. And then just chase it with he's earned it, because I can't argue with that. I mean, we're all doing this, right? We're all waiting. He's earned that. Just don't lie to us and say that it's not about grabbing the news cycle for yourself. Is it? It is. Waited for free agency to die down. Then it was the World Cup, and he, trying to find a landing spot to where he would dominate the headlines more than he already has, by the way, which is hard to do. And then he was going to make his decision. But I wonder if by setting that arbitrary deadline or that arbitrary timeline where I'm not going to make a decision now, when in the heat of free agency, I'm going to wait. And maybe that's a good idea, right? Laying the rosters. I mean, we saw Giannis get traded. We saw Jaylen Brown get traded. So it's probably good for him to wait a little bit. And then it was like, well, I want to wait a little bit because the World Cup's going on. I'm a global brand, and we got Fanatics Fest coming up, and that's not really the right time. He kept pushing it back. Meanwhile, he's thinking about this. Maybe he made his decision. He's like, I'm going to go here, but I'm not going to announce it yet. Well, there's nothing holding you to that decision. So when he's sitting in a quiet moment, maybe he's talking to some people, new information pops up. He's like, I don't know if I want to go there. I wonder if that's what's going on with him, that maybe he talked himself out of where he was going to go. And now he either talks himself back into it, or he pivots completely and goes somewhere else. Now, there's, as far as what information he may be getting or how he may be talking himself out of that, Rich Paul said something on the latest edition of his podcast with Max Kellerman, Game Over, that I thought was interesting. Again, this is not, from Rich Paul's lips to LeBron's ears, but he is a trusted member of LeBron's inner circle. And I'm sure LeBron is at least going to listen to what Rich Paul has to say, even if he doesn't completely take it to heart. This is something that Rich Paul said about, I think it's about us saying, well, this place would be best and this place would be best, given what these teams look like right now, or as we call in the business, what these teams look like on paper.
Don't just value the paper, because the paper in July is different than when you get into training camp, when you get into January. There's a lot of things to think through.
And I think there's a lot of validity to that. And the two teams that I think of immediately when he says something like that, this would be a reason not to go to Philadelphia or to Golden State. And here's why. One, Philadelphia, I think most people say, if it's not the number one destination, it's right up there in terms of, if LeBron wants the path of least resistance, the best chance to compete for a title, Philadelphia on paper looks better than all of these other teams. Okay? But do we know for sure how it's going to work? Even with the roster that they have, they still have Joel Embiid hanging over the organization. Do we know for a fact that Philadelphia is going to click and everything's going to be awesome and they're going to be the team to beat in the East? I think we feel strongly about it, but we don't know for sure because it's new. We haven't had any evidence presented to us that Jaylen Brown's going to work with that group. And then you have Golden State. This isn't so much about what they, that they look on paper to be formidable, because they don't. Golden State's not winning a title with or without LeBron James. So what Rich Paul said in that context is they are one Steph Curry hamstring away from being probably a terrible team. Right? And Steph Curry's not young anymore. So the idea that right now with Steph Curry healthy, that may be very compelling to LeBron James. But what if you take away Steph Curry? Maybe he still likes Draymond, but is it going to be LeBron and Draymond against the Western Conference? So I hear what Rich Paul says. I'm like, I think there's a lot of validity to this. And maybe that's what's in LeBron's mind right now. Like, do I know for sure that this destination or that destination would be the best? We may never know, right? He's gonna make his announcement, and it's probably going to be presented as, he thought about it for a long time. I don't think he's going to say that I was thinking of going to Cleveland and then I decided to go to Miami. But I wonder if there's some part of him over the last few days when he's been waiting and waiting and waiting, when all these teams have just been basically sitting there. It's been a while since Jaylen Brown got traded and Giannis got traded. These teams are basically who they have been since the very start of free agency. Wonder if he's talked himself out of a place. Will he talk himself back into it? Or will he ultimately change his mind? We may not know. But I was thinking about that. And there's also another part of this too, that you flip it around, and I think some of the national conversation is starting to move this way. If LeBron can take this time and talk himself out of a potential destination, could a team that is in LeBron sweepstakes talk themselves out of wanting LeBron? Or at least talk themselves out of the high level of desire they may have once had? Like, at what point do some of these teams, whether they're the perceived front runners or they're the Denver, Minnesota dark horses of all of this, do they go, you know what? We're good. If he decides to come here, then that's fine. Like, we'll be happy to have him. He makes our team better. But the desperation level that we got to have him, we got to win this sweepstakes. I wonder how many of these teams are like, I think Cleveland can't. I think it's almost at a point that Miami can't. But I think some of these other teams are like, if he comes here, awesome. If he doesn't, we'll move on with our lives. And I think even though I said Miami's starting to get to the point where they can't because there's such a fever pitch now with Miami being the betting favorite all of a sudden, but I heard Pat Riley speak on Dan Le Batard's show. And I got that kind of sense. Like Pat Riley saying, we're good. LeBron and I, we're good. Any animosity I had towards him because he went back to Cleveland, that's gone. That's ages ago. Water under the bridge. We're good. His wife is great. He's great. Everybody's great. I just got the sense from Pat Riley, like he was like, I'm not going to sit here and stump for LeBron to come here. We would like him to come here. We think we have a compelling reason for him to come here. That's the sense I got, that Pat Riley's like, all right, I'm not groveling. And maybe in the beginning, LeBron had some grovelers. But at a certain point, you got to have some self-respect for your organization and be like, you know what? You are the greatest player of your generation. You can make an impact on our team. But you're also going to be 42 years old. You got 1, maybe 2 years left. Okay, you're not the LeBron of 8 years ago. You're not the LeBron that went back to Cleveland or the one that went to Miami. Okay, there's a balancing act here that I wonder if LeBron is starting to lose it a little bit the longer he waits. I think organizations have got to kind of say to themselves, we like to have you, but we've said all we can say. We put together the team we put together. Do you want to join us or not? 719-247-1313. Just getting going on this edition of the show. Coming up next, Super Bowl 50 champion TJ Ward will be in Colorado Springs this weekend. He'll tell you why next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Super Bowl 50 champion TJ Ward getting set to join us here on the show momentarily. While TJ gets set up here, let me tell you the reason why, as I said before the break, that TJ is going to be in Colorado Springs. There is the Mountain West Football Showcase. It's just regarding the geographic region, not the football conference, just to be clear about that. It is at the William J. Hibble Sports Medicine and Performance Center on the UCCS campus, just down the road from our studio. It's for football players in the 2027, 2028, and 2029 classes. So if you have a football player in that's set to graduate in those classes, this is for you. It's just a chance to compete against other high-level football players in their age group, showcase your talents, get some coaching from some of the best, and show off your abilities to, get opportunities at the next level to play football. So that is what's going on this weekend. The Mount West Football Showcase will share some stuff on social media so you could get signed up for it here once we're done chatting with TJ Ward here. Still waiting for him to jump into the studio here. But want to talk about coming up in just a little bit. All these training camp storylines are coming out, and one that I found particularly interesting is which member of the Denver Broncos has the most at stake this upcoming season. And I'll tell you who the Athletic identified as that player and talk a little bit about that coming up here in just a little bit. But I just saw him. I think TJ's getting set up here. There he is. My guest, you know him well, a 3-time Pro Bowler and, of course, a Super Bowl champion. He is Denver Bronco TJ Ward. TJ, appreciate you joining me. It's okay that I refer to you as a Bronco. I know you had a long career. You played for some other teams, but we are claiming you as a Denver Bronco. Is that all right with you?
Man, that's great. That's how most people know me. It's crazy because a lot of people, they didn't even know I played for Cleveland. They think my career actually started in Denver, but I guess to the masses it did because we didn't really get many opportunities to play nationally in Cleveland at the time.
True. TJ did not just, even though it felt like he was a gift from somewhere, he didn't just spawn in Denver. He was playing football in Cleveland before that. We got training camps opening. Rookies are reporting at some camps already today. 6 years after your career, do you miss it at all?
Yeah, I do miss it, man. I miss it a lot. I'll be lying if I say I didn't, but I'm enjoying life after football, and I'm in a great place. But man, you just don't get over something you've been doing your whole life, especially when it's the start of football season. So the start is probably the most I miss it, right? And getting the equipment, getting your helmet and pads, and coming into camp and rejoining the team. That's the fresh cut grass. Even though everybody's going to turf now, but I definitely miss the game and I miss playing. But it ends for us all. So
right. Well, and for some people, myself, it never begins, TJ. So there's that perspective for you. You brought up the grass turf thing. The World Cup has kind of brought this back to the forefront. If you were still active and still playing in the NFL and you were in those NFLPA meetings or talking to your representative, how important would pushing owners to go all grass instead of turf, how important would that be to you?
Man, top of the list. It'd be top of the list. Definitely I say the top 3 issues. going on in our game right now. Just because that turf, man, we've seen it, you know, in seasons and make it tough on retirement, and it's just not a great surface. You know, it's not the old Astro turf, which I can't believe we played on.
I can't believe
I
it
played
either.
on either. Like that is atrocious. But even the field turf now is just very hard. It's not giving. Um, I don't know if they've even took a step back on that technology compared to how it was when it first was introduced.
Mhm.
But I've had one of my major injuries even in high school coming off of practicing on that turf throughout the week and my knee just being very tender to the touch. So that turf, man, it's really shortening careers and it's making it hard post career.
Uh, TJ Ward, my guest, misses training camp in the start of the football season, does not miss turf. That's one thing that he does not miss about his playing days. But you're finding a lot of different ways this camp that I want to talk to you about here in a moment is a way that you can kind of give back to the next generation of football players, keep yourself in the game. But also, I see you everywhere. I see you with Aqib Talib in the arena, chatting it up. You got your own podcast, so you're very much still in the NFL, but just in a different way. I guess I'll ask it this way. What is your excitement level as somebody who talks about the game for this upcoming Broncos season?
I'm very excited. I'm very excited, man. This is going to be an exciting season. I think it's going to be a successful season for us. Like I've been saying on my show, Safety First, is like we have all the pieces all coming back, coaches and players included. We were one injury away last year from I believe making the Super Bowl and having a chance to win that game. It would have been tough against the Seahawks, but I definitely think it was a game we could have won. We would definitely put up a better fight than than the Patriots. But yeah, we added Waddle, and he's an explosive piece of the offense. A lot of people say it's just the one piece that we needed. But anytime you bring a player in like him that can go the distance at any moment in the game, it makes your offense a lot better and a lot more explosive. So the defense is pretty much all returning. We got a healthy Brandon Jones at safety now, and retained our linebackers and D line, except for one player up front. So, man, when you have all those pieces coming back and they've played together for now 3 years, 2 years, and the cohesion's going to be there, the familiarity, that word always gets me, is going to be there. But, if everything, stays in line, we stay, for the most part healthy. I think that's probably will be our biggest worry, but that's football. No one is 100% healthy by the end of the season. So it can look really good for us when it's all said and done.
Super Bowl 50 champion TJ Ward, my guest. Obviously, the defensive backfield that you were a part of is the standard when it comes to high quality secondaries. When you look at this Broncos secondary, is there any attribute, any part of that backfield that you look at and you say, you know what, that reminds me of us, myself, Chris Harris, Aqib Talib, that group? Is there anything that this secondary reminds you of you guys?
I believe so. I think they're a little bit different than us, just the way they're structured and their players. Like, you got PS2, defensive player of the year. We didn't have a defensive player in a year in our secondary, but I think across, all five players, we were really, really balanced, like me and Stu on the back end, right? You could get your head knocked off by either one of us. But as a whole, I just think they're a little bit different, right? Their safeties, Brandon Jones is good, but I wouldn't call him the most physical guy, but he's very good, in space.
Mhm.
Tag, he does his thing. He's very physical as well. He's the wild card, strong safety. You can put him anywhere. He blitzes very well. I think, we're very similar in that aspect. And you have Riley on the other corner and McMillan on the inside, who plays a nickel as good as we've seen in this league. I think he's a very well-rounded player. He can blitz, he can cover, he can tackle well. Him and Chris are very similar in that state. But Chris was a two-time All-Pro. So that being said, you got Lee, but another All-Pro. And myself an All-Pro. So I think we're just overall. A little more balanced, but they're very, very talented and they get the job done.
For sure they do, and we'll look to see how they get the job done this upcoming season. Before I let you go, TJ, let's talk a little bit about what's going on this weekend. I gave the particulars before you joined me. Just down the street from where I'm standing is the William J. Hibble Sports Medicine and Performance Center at UCCS. The Mount West Football Showcase. Why is this an event that you wanted to be a part of, and what can families with young football players expect when they are a part of this showcase?
Yeah, man, we just wanted to bring some attention to the region. I know there's a lot of talent out there in the Mountain West, Colorado specifically, in the high schools and the surrounding areas of Denver. But a lot of times in a lot of these rankings or a lot of these charts, you hear of the California schools, the Texas schools, the Florida schools, even back east, right? You got PA and some of the other Midwest territories, but I think Colorado has a lot to offer. They put out a lot of talent. And it's time that we shed some light on that. So myself and Exos and my company, Player Above Sports, we decided to put this thing on. So not only do we have the opportunity for these kids to go through and get their numbers and the 40s and get some elite training on position specific things, but also to, like I said, shed that light on and be compared to some of the other top players in the country. So it's not only going to be, a testing type of environment, but it's going to be very informal, where we're giving out a lot of information, especially with the climate of NIL. And hopefully these athletes and these parents take home a lot of information outside of us having the ability to, get their numbers and do things with them on the field.
That's awesome. And as someone who is born and raised here, the struggle for elite athletes in every sport, but especially football, to get their name out there and make college recruiters realize that there is a wealth of talent here and it's only getting better. It's awesome that you're helping do that, TJ. So we certainly appreciate it. Again, we'll put out the link so you can sign up. It's coming up this week. So once we do that, make sure you act quickly and get your the young football player in your life signed up for this. Really, when are you going to get an opportunity like this? So please take advantage of it. In the meantime, at Boss Ward 43, if you want to follow TJ, and he mentioned his podcast, new episodes of the Safety First podcast drop every Wednesday night at 7. So we're about 24 hours away from a new episode dropping. TJ, really appreciate the time. Hope you're doing well, and we'll talk soon.
I am. Thank you. Anytime. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I'll hold you to that, TJ. Appreciate you. That is
right.
TJ Ward, Super Bowl 50 champion, member of that no-fly zone secondary that helped the Broncos win Super Bowl 50. I mean, you know all of that already. You know exactly who TJ Ward is. But very cool, again, that he's doing this, and he's speaking to a lot of people around here. It's been a struggle for people in Colorado to say, hey, we got ballers out here too. We got talent out here, and we're starting to see more of it, certainly. Maybe Christian McCaffrey kind of opened the door a little bit for a lot, but there's more work to be done, and TJ doing a great job of helping shine a spotlight on the young athletes around here. Appreciate him taking some time. We'll take a break and have more Drive Time Sports right after this. Thanks again to TJ Ward for stopping by the show. If you missed that interview, it will be coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. I do want to get into one of the things we discussed, and I was going to bring it up to TJ, and then he brought it up unprompted when I asked him about missing training camp in the start of football season. He brought up the grass turf debate, and this has reignited the debate because the World Cup has these pristine grass surfaces that look so beautiful. In the NFL, the players, I should be very specific, not the league, but the players are looking at it like, why can't we have that? And if you listen to the Dan Patrick show this morning, he had the director of fields or something to that extent, the person that oversees the quality of all of these fields, whether they are grass or artificial. And the thing, I feel like when I was listening, it sounded like Adam Silver talking about the NBA's issue, which is not about playing surface, but it's more about, back-to-backs, the number of games that they play, but it's the injuries that we are seeing, the soft tissue injuries in the NBA, right? And it's Jason Tatum and it's Tyrese Halliburton and the list goes on of these players who are tearing ACLs or tearing Achilles or missing significant time with other soft tissue injuries. And when Adam Silver has been asked about it, he kind of hides behind numbers, which we all do sometimes in sports. We hide behind data and numbers. But the data that Adam Silver has mentioned says that there is no correlation between, the number of games that these guys play or the number of back-to-backs or whatever people point to it. There's no correlation. That essentially the numbers say that this is just an outlier, that we've had some bad luck, or maybe they've happened to higher profile players, and that's why we care more. But he says that the numbers aren't telling the story that we all think is going on, that there's been an increase of these kind of injuries. And the guy from the NFL that Dan had on this morning sounded the same. Like, he's talking about how all of these fields, whether they're grass or a different surface are, and I forget the word he used, but they were basically in the allowable range for quality, every single field, right? And that's part of his job, is to make sure that it falls within a certain threshold. And he says every playing surface in the NFL is within this threshold. That there are no, and the final being in MetLife Stadium on Sunday, and that being kind of whatever the place where everyone points to, the turf in New Jersey. He says even that, there's no outliers here. There's no surface in the league that is, substandard or terrible by any stretch of the imagination. They're all within the allowable range. And basically saying that we have fine-tuned these surfaces, whether they're real or artificial, to where there is not, and he said this, there's not a correlation here between the playing surface and injuries. Almost as if there are just as many injuries happening on grass as turf. And I haven't seen the numbers, but let's just say that they do. All the data they're taking in says there's no real correlation. Okay? I don't know if I totally believe that, but let me concede that and go to what TJ said. shouldn't it matter what the players say? And I would also, and TJ has even mentioned his post-playing career. Like injuries that cause you to miss time are one thing, but how about just the wear and tear of playing on an artificial surface that maybe doesn't manifest itself to the point that you're missing games, but it makes maybe you don't feel as good in the off season. Maybe you're dealing with issues in your post-playing career like TJ was intimating. So maybe it's not just injuries, maybe it's the wear and tear that happens to the players over time that creates issues for them later in their career and later in their lives. But shouldn't you just listen to the workers, the people who have to go out there? Like, do you think, there's a lot of frivolous things to squabble over. I don't feel like this is one of those things that's petty or inconsequential, or it's something that the NFL players would just say. Like of all the things that they have to battle the NFL over every time a new CBA is due to be signed, like why would they make up the issues that they're having? Why would they manufacture out of thin air the idea that playing on these surfaces, there is a massive difference? It's not a slim difference. It's a massive difference, and it causes them problems. Why would they just make that up? It seems like the weirdest thing to lie about. So why doesn't the NFL and their owners listen? And I can say one thing for the guy up north, Greg Penner. He's brought in new fields. Like he's gone to the next level with it and changing out the field before the season is even over. And I'm not saying that every NFL owner should do that. I think it's great that an NFL owner cares enough about his players to do that. But the reaction from the players tells you something. Like they're celebrating when the new surface gets brought in. And I say all that, the NFL owners know. Okay, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. Okay, they probably were able to create some data set that the owners can hide behind and the league can hide behind. But the fact of the matter is that it doesn't trump what the players who have to play on those fields week in and week out say and go to different places. They have their own home field and they go to half of their schedule is played away. They go to a lot of different stadiums. They know. And if they haven't experienced it, they've certainly heard it from other players. So the owners know. I just don't think there's any debate. What's better, turf or grass? There's no debate here. But the owners don't want to fork out the money to have to redo the field because I do one thing that the guy did say on the Dan Patrick show this morning that I actually bought. Like not every climate does grass do well. Right? Like there are some owners that are going to be continuously pouring money into this. And I'm not expecting you to shed a tear for them. I'm certainly not. But they want to protect against that. I'm sure there's an owner in some market that's going, and maybe it's the owners of the Jets and Giants that are going like, wait a minute. Maybe it's good for Denver or good in, I don't know, Jacksonville or whatever. I'm not up on where grass grows the best. But like, it's easy for them to do it this way. But for us, it's a real struggle and we got to keep paying for it over and over and over again. So that's why they do it. It's a cost-cutting measure. It's one place of all the things that they have to pay for on a daily basis to operate an NFL team. That's one where if they have turf, they can kind of like Ronco, set it and forget it. And that's one thing that doesn't keep popping up on their balance sheet. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean that they should treat it that way, but we know why they do that. So the question just becomes, and that's why I asked TJ Ward the follow-up question. If he were still a part of the Players Association, how high would playing surfaces be on his list of priorities? And he said it would be right there at the top. We know how this works. Whenever there's a collective bargaining situation, the owners usually win. But that overall, right? The owners usually win. But that doesn't mean that the players don't claim victory in some form or fashion. Like, they can win battles. The NFL owners seem to always win the war. But the players can win battles. And if this is a battle that they prioritize and a battle that they say we want to fight more than any other, they can get it done. Should it have to be this way? No. But this is employer-employee. This is union versus the companies. It's not just the NFL or professional sports. It happens in every career path where they're unionized. Right? You got to give and take. You're going to lose something, but you're going to be able to gain something. You just got to prioritize it. So if the World Cup has brought this to the forefront in the minds of the players, and it's going to stay fresh in their minds to say, no matter what, this is the battle that we want to win, I think they can win it. And if the owners, and Dan Patrick pointed this out, the perfect trade-off here is if the owners are dead set on an 18th game, if that's what it's going to be, then I think it's an easy argument for the NFL players to make to say, all right, you want an 18th game? That goes against player safety. That goes against player wellness. How about you give us our grass fields for 18 games and we can sign on the dotted line? But what happens so often in these negotiations, because there may be bad owners in the NFL, but in large part, they're not dumb people, right? They may not know how to field a winning team, but they didn't make it to where they are in life by being dummies, okay? And here's what the NFL owners do all the time. They cloud it. They complicate it. They say, well, what about this? And they say, well, we want to crack down on this. And then it kind of divides the union a little bit. And now you're not getting as much support for the main thing. So the NFL owners are very good at this. They're very good at this. And in what I say about prioritizing it cuts both ways. Like, the players can win this battle and get grass fields if they put their minds to it and prioritize it. But if the NFL owners really don't want to do this, they could put that same level of willpower and do the thing that they always do to conflate things and confuse and pull the union in various ways. But I'm behind the players. There's enough problems with playing the game of football. It should at least be playing on grass. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome in. Great to have you, whether you're listening to the show, Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or whether you're watching the show anywhere you scroll, and we do mean anywhere. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram. You can watch this show in all of those places. All you need to do is follow some combination of these three. At Extra Sports 1300, at 740 KVOR, or me. I am at Gingerly Tweets on X and at Gingewatch on Instagram if you'd like to watch the show that way. And if you'd like to take your participation in today's show to the next level, I highly encourage that. You could drop a comment on the live stream, or you could call or text into the show at 719-247-1313. The Athletic picked one player on each team in the NFL to say this person has the most on the line this upcoming season. And a bunch of them are quarterbacks, as you might expect, but not the Denver Broncos. And I think they're right in this. Because, yes, the perception of Bo Nix and whether he is a top 10 quarterback, a franchise quarterback, that conversation is going to happen. It's already started to happen, but this feels like a big year for that conversation. You know, the comparisons between him and Justin Herbert, who truly is the best, second best quarterback in that division behind Patrick Mahomes, of course. I think it feels like a big year for that, whether it's Herbert or Nix. It feels like it's a big year for Bo Nix's draft class. How are we going to rank these guys? I think Penix and McCarthy have completely fallen off. But now it's May, it's Caleb. Here comes Jaden Daniels back into the fold. And, of course, Bo Nix. So all that is important. All that is significant because the Broncos are going to be soon on the clock for offering Bo Nix an extension. However, I don't foresee any way that if this season does not go according to plan, that Bo Nix will lose his job. So the Athletics' choice of Riley Moss, I think, is spot on. Because either Riley Moss could lose his spot on the Denver Broncos, his position on the Denver Broncos, and be supplanted, or he could be traded. And Bo Nix isn't due for an extension yet. Riley Moss is. So I think unequivocally Riley Moss is the Broncos player with the most on the line this year. But there's another part to this, right? And we talked about Riley Moss a lot, and we will continue to talk about Riley Moss. Is it just because he has more volume being thrown his way, and that's why, law of averages, that he's going to get beat? I don't think that's the case. I just think he is a guy that gets beat too much. And if he doesn't get beat outright, he's committing penalties. I am not a huge Riley Moss believer, to put it plainly. But this past season, he was the best that they could do at that position. So the other part of this that ties to Riley Moss, but leads into a player that is near the top of my list of who I'm most intrigued by, Jahdae Barron. And I don't know what the initial plan was supposed to be. I kind of thought it was playing him in the slot, but the way that Jaquan McMillan played, it made it difficult for him to get on the field. And then it was, it's him being on the outside, which I think was always going to be a longer term plan for Jahdae Barron, and he couldn't quite do it out there. And then we had a high profile first round pick that we barely saw. So in order for Riley Moss to lose what he has on the line and maybe get traded or not get offered an extension by the Denver Broncos, to me correlates with how Jahdae Barron plays. Because I may have my differences with Broncos fans when it comes to Riley Moss, but I'm not going to sit here and say that Riley Moss is terrible. I just think that the Broncos could upgrade there, and I thought that's kind of the Jahdae Barron plan here. But if Jahdae Barron doesn't emerge, then I think that the Broncos would have to look seriously at retaining Riley Moss. Because the window's open. You go to the AFC Championship, your window is now open. The clock is ticking. Because you're going to get a couple of years, and then Bo Nix is going to get paid an ungodly amount of money. And you're not going to be able to just make the type of roster decisions that you're making now, which is not that the Broncos always go after the best player available, but they go for the right blend of talent, but also fit. Right, Jalen Waddle. They can bring in Jalen Waddle right now. They could sign Riley Moss. They can lock up other guys to extensions. They can do all this kind of stuff. It's going to be more difficult, and the choices are going to be harder once Bo Nix starts getting paid. So this is the window where if Riley Moss is the best you got opposite Pat Surtain, because Jahdae Barron, who would make less money over the next few years than a Riley Moss extension would cost, you got to keep Riley Moss. You got to keep pushing. You got to go for it when you're in this window, because 2-3 years from now, you're probably not going to be able to retain a Riley Moss because the cap is going to be a little bit tighter. So I don't know if there's a big bounce back or improvement coming this year for Riley Moss. I kind of think Riley Moss is Riley Moss. Defend him, criticize him, do what you will. This is him. And I expect more of the same this upcoming season from him. So I think if you're a Broncos fan, you hope Jahdae Barron elevates his game and is able to crack the lineup and show that he has potential, at least, to be a worthy player opposite Pat Surtain in the Broncos secondary. But if he doesn't, then I think the choice is pretty easy for the Denver Broncos at this moment in time, right? With their cap situation being a lot better than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, and a lot better than it's going to be 2 years from now. So I cannot argue one bit with the Athletic tabbing Riley Moss as the Broncos player that has the most on the line this season. I think Bo Nix would probably be second on that list for all the reasons I just mentioned. But again, I look at the players I'm most intrigued by. Now, intrigued probably not the right word, because I haven't seen enough from Jahdae Barron. I guess the players that as training camp begins, I'm going to be keeping my eye on a little bit more. Jahdae Barron's right there at the top of the list for me. TJ Ward mentioned when he joined me last hour, mentioned another guy, Brandon Jones. Right now, he's healthy. Love the way that Hufanga played last year. Pat Surtain is Pat Surtain. Jaquan McMillan had a nice year, and I just talked about Riley Moss. Brandon Jones could be a huge plus for that Broncos secondary if he's healthy and right. And then this one is This one is easy. Jalen Waddle. Like, I want to see it. I'm going to be locked into what Jalen Waddle is doing, especially early, as are you. What this looks like with he and Bo Nix. How are they going to employ him? Is he going to be somebody that's more on the outside, or are they going to play him inside? I saw a stat the other day tied to Bo Nix being 59th or whatever he was on the NFL Top 100, that his accuracy on hitch routes was like one of the best in the NFL, like one of those really deep stats that we as stats nerds or football junkies love. Yeah, Bo Nix's completion percentage on hitch routes. How many hitch routes is Jalen Waddle going to run? He probably should run a lot of them, because that Bo Nix seems to be pretty good at that. But, there's not a lot of, on an individual level, there's not a ton of unknown. I think another player I'll throw onto the list, Jonah Ellis. Right? We don't have a resolution yet with Jonathan Cooper. The whole experiment of Jonah Ellis playing inside doesn't look like it's really going to happen. So, depending on what happens with Jonathan Cooper, it could be a major role. Jonah Ellis, I think Jonah Ellis and Jahdae Barron, as far as the young players go, are the most intriguing to me. And then you have Brandon Jones coming off of the injury, and then Jalen Waddle being new to the team. I think that would be my list. But Jonah Ellis and Jahdae Barron, I think both have an opportunity in front of them, because you don't draft a guy in the first round and give him every opportunity to earn a spot on this team. Because if Jahdae Barron is from the Milford Academy, neither seen nor heard, then we're going to start throwing around the B word. It's a 4-letter word that we use for players who are drafted high, have high expectations, but do not live up to them. So the Broncos are going to give Jahdae Barron every opportunity to be on the field, whether it's in the slot or on the outside. Does he take advantage of it? And what does that mean ultimately for Riley Moss? We saw with the Broncos in the draft that George Payton loved getting those picks. You could get picks for Riley Moss. And I think that would be the ideal scenario for the Denver Broncos. Okay? And maybe they like Riley Moss more than I do. But if you can have Jahdae Barron play out opposite Pat Surtain and make Riley Moss expendable and get draft capital in return for him, that's the ideal scenario. That's why you draft a Jahdae Barron. That's why you draft anybody, to eventually supplant the person that currently holds that position, especially early in the draft. Late in the draft, you're just, grasping at straws and taking the best player available. But when you're drafting a guy early, the hope is he's going to one day be a cheaper option at that position with this highly compensated player. It's the same thought process that we have as human beings when we have children. We have them with the hope that they are better than us and supplant us. Well, they will supplant us eventually, but we want them to be better. So that's the plan with Jahdae Barron, and that would be bad news for Riley Moss, but good news for the Denver Broncos. 719-247-1313. Which Broncos player in your mind has the most on the line this season? And then my question as well, as it pertains to Jonah Ellis and Jahdae Barron, who are the players when training camp opens up that you're going to be a little bit more focused on? You can give me your thoughts at 719-247-1313. The Athletic says that the Broncos player with the most on the line this upcoming season is Riley Moss. Getting pushed a little bit from Jahdae Barron, set for an extension. And let's be honest, he was picked on a little bit last year, not just, from teams, but from media and fans as well. I agree with that. Jeff called in. He has a different take on the Broncos player that has the most on the line this season. Jeff, great to have you. You're on Drive Time Sports. Which Broncos player do you think has the most on the line this season?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I think it's no doubt Bo Nix. Denver's a football town. And last year when he went out, we would have went to the Super Bowl, no doubt. And I'm just really nervous that his ankle's not going to hold up. Chronic ankle injuries are not good. And he's got the hopes of the whole state on his shoulders. So I think it's Bo Nix, no doubt.
What would be, and you said to me when you initially called in that you are a fan. You like Bo Nix. Could I say that you believe in Bo Nix, ankle aside, in him as a quarterback? You believe in him, yes?
Oh, for sure. I think he was top 2 quarterbacks in the league last year.
Okay, so is there a scenario in your head that if next season goes a certain way that would move you off of that position? Is there something that could happen where you would go, yeah, maybe Bo Nix isn't the guy?
Maybe, but probably not.
Yeah.
Last year when he beat the Chiefs and he took a lap around the whole stadium and high-fived every fan that stayed, that was the moment when I was like, that's my quarterback.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jeff, for the call. Call more often, please. Show's always better when we get callers and texters onto this show. And the reason I ask that, it kind of, I think, fortifies my point that maybe Bo Nix is not the player with the most on the line, because here's somebody who is a fan of Bo Nix that is saying, and I'm not saying that Jeff's opinion is wrong. I'm just using it to highlight that maybe Bo Nix doesn't have as much professionally on the line this upcoming season as Riley Moss does, because, again, Bo Nix isn't losing his job. If Jeff's any indication of Broncos country, he's not losing the faith of the fan base. So that's why I think Riley Moss squeaks in ahead of Bo Nix. But I'll reiterate that doesn't mean this isn't a big year for Bo Nix. Right? And every year, once you get to a certain threshold, which is the AFC Championship, arbitrarily, but that's where the Broncos went last year, and I feel this way about them, so that's going to be the line. Your clock starts ticking. You're in your championship window. You prove that, and we can talk about, the Chiefs being down and in Buffalo not maybe being as good as they have been in the past, Baltimore the same way. And we'll continue to debate that between now and the beginning of the season and well into the season. Okay, but the fact of the matter is a season of the NFL happened, and the Denver Broncos were 1 win away from the Super Bowl. And I agree with Jeff's take that if Bo Nix is healthy, they win that game. I do not think that the Denver Broncos go into the Super Bowl and beat Seattle. Just to be clear, it was going to be Seattle. Maybe you didn't realize it along the way, but in the end, you look back and you're like, yeah, it was Seattle. It was Seattle all along. But you get to an AFC championship, and their popular opinion is that if you were healthy, you would have went to a Super Bowl. Now you're in a championship window. And with all the conversation around this NFL top 100 list where he ended up 10 spots higher than Lamar Jackson, which I still think is farcical. I don't know how you would put Bo Nix ahead of Lamar Jackson, let alone 10 spots. But I said this yesterday. The rest of that group, Lawrence, Mayfield, who else was there? Purdy, Bryce Young. I think it just shows that if you take Lamar out of that conversation, that a lot of these guys at this level are pretty interchangeable. For Bo Nix, you look at late game situations, maybe some other players, you look at their sheer passing numbers, but it's very fluid, this group of players that they're into in the NFL top 100, especially when it comes to the quarterbacks. But with Bo Nix being 10 spots higher than Lamar Jackson, that puts some added interest onto how Bo Nix is going to perform this year. And the draft class that he is a part of that is trending in a direction that we're going to be talking about this class. There's the potential. We're still early, but there's the potential that this is the new generation's, 1983? Kelly Marino, Elway, that group. This group is trending in that direction with the rookie, and we'll see what Jaden Daniels does in year 3 when he's healthy. But year 1, he was spectacular. Caleb Williams was terrible in his rookie year and was phenomenal last year. Drake May almost won the MVP, and then there's Bo Nix. And I don't mean that to diminish him. I guess I'm putting him definitely 4th right now in that group, but he had a great season. So this is going to be a draft class that we are going to continue to follow and continue to compare to one another for years. So this is a significant season for Bo Nix in many different ways, and a significant season by extension for the Denver Broncos. But if it doesn't go according to plan, if there is some sort of hangover, if his ankle doesn't hold up, and let's say his ankle doesn't hold up, but it's not, we don't go down the road of, is he going to be hampered by the rest of his career? Let's just say he re-aggravates it or something. If it doesn't go according to plan, he's still going to be the quarterback the next year. But the perception of him could change drastically. So it's not a bad answer, Bo Nix. I just think that Riley Moss has more professionally at stake, especially his professional life. I don't think the guy's out of the league if Jahdae Barron supplants him in Denver, but I think he could be done in Denver. So that's why I have Riley Moss. But good points brought up by Jeff. 719-24-7. 13-13. Still waiting on our free agent decision from Bismack Biyombo. Still don't know where he's going to play the rest of his NBA career yet. Oh, and LeBron, we don't know either. Saw this from Jake Fisher, and I said this a couple of days ago. If you're looking for as much Nuggets information as you can get, Jake Fisher and Mark Stein have been the best. Everyone else is on Bron watch. Those two guys have been basically covering the rest of the league and doing a great job of it. Jake Fisher said today that the way he sees it and what he's hearing, there's a good chance that Peyton Watson is back on the Denver Nuggets. Which, to me, continues with all the news and reporting that those two have done. That's the one thing that I'm like, yes, I've been saying this. It is not a shocking result if Peyton Watson were to end up on the Denver Nuggets. The question to me was always going to be, first of all, at what price? And second of all, what that price means for other players on the roster. Well, now it seems because nobody has any money, and to get a bona fide all-star level or borderline all-star level player, you got to give up 2-3 first-round picks. And how many teams have that many picks available? It doesn't seem like if the Nuggets had any plan to just simply shed salary that they're going to be able to. So maybe the second part of that is off the table, that they can't move Jamal Murray. They can't move Aaron Gordon. And that may be good news to you, but the reality in the market is they're not going to be able to move these guys with those contracts and with the Nuggets should reasonably expect back in return. But this first part of that, Peyton Watson being a Denver Nugget, I always felt like he was going to be on the Denver Nuggets. I just thought his inclusion on the Nuggets would cost them someone else. But this is and we did this with Josh Giddey and Jonathan Kuminga. We do this with every restricted free agent. It's happening with Jalen Duren in Detroit right now. I saw a report today that those negotiations could go well into the month of August. I told you Jonathan Kuminga signed a deal with the Golden State Warriors the last day of September. I don't know if Peyton Watson's going to be resolved in the next couple of weeks. We'll probably get LeBron's decision before the decision on Peyton Watson in Denver. But restricted free agency, Peyton Watson just doesn't hold the cards here. And other teams don't hold the cards here. I mean, you just saw in the NHL, the Philadelphia Flyers try to make Leo Carlsson the highest paid player in the history of the National Hockey League. And with one stroke of a pen, Anaheim was like, nah, and kept him. That's the power of restricted free agency. And it's something that the players don't like. Because they're not a real free agent. They can't choose where they go. And the team you're playing on, has the hammer. And in today's NBA, where the financial rules are as such, there just aren't that many suitors out there that are able to make Peyton Watson an offer. So the Nuggets were right to show the confidence that Ben Tenzer showed on draft night, that they believed Peyton Watson would be there. They had the power to keep him this entire time. But that's just, I suppose, my belief, whereas Jake Fisher is coming out and putting a little bit of, insider information into it and saying that he believes Peyton Watson will ultimately be a member of the Denver Nuggets this upcoming season. Still looking for that other point guard type player for the Denver Nuggets. That's still on the old wish list. 719-24-7. 1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Well, that's funny. We were just talking about Peyton Watson. Tomorrow night, Switchbacks FC back in action, taking on Miami FC and World Cup sensation Eloy Room. He was the goalkeeper for Curacao. So Miami comes to town tomorrow night, 7 o'clock kick. If you would like to go, I have a 4-pack of tickets for the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and their name to 719-247-1313. Speaking of the Switchbacks, they made a necessary roster move today. They have brought in a goalkeeper by the name of Sam Jones. Should be easy to remember for a certain play-by-play voice of the team. Sam Jones has signed to a 25-day contract, and he will essentially serve as the backup to Colin Shuttler with Christian Herrera out with a finger injury. But the 25 days, I think, is a good sign that Chris will be out there before too long. But you got to have somebody, right? You got to have somebody. So they bring in Sam Jones on a 25-day contract, played at South Tormenta, Georgia FC, one level down in the USL Championship pecking order. But again, it's Colin Shuttler's net. When Chris comes back, we'll see what Alan McCann wants to do. And Chris obviously started right before he got hurt started, and then at training injured himself that following week. So, Sam Jones will be in. Colin Shuttler will be the goalkeeper, though, of record for the Switchbacks while Christian Herrera is out. So that match coming up tomorrow night. Again, there's 2 home matches this week. Tomorrow night against Miami and Saturday against one of the best the league has to offer, which is Charleston Battery. Well, I am going tonight to go see the Odyssey. I like to wait a little, just take a beat. My kids don't let me do that. We're seeing Spider-Man at midnight, the night it comes out. I can't wait when it comes to the movies my sons watch with me. But when it's me on a solo mission or with a buddy, I tend to take a beat. So I'm going to go see the Odyssey tonight. I have high hopes. Everyone's been doing their Christopher Nolan ranking after seeing the Odyssey, and Christopher Nolan's one of my favorite directors as well. So I'll see where it is. I'm surprised that the Odyssey, not for any list that I've seen, I'm surprised that nobody has put it near the top. Now, we're talking about Christopher Nolan movies here. So even if you get down to The Dark Knight Rises on many people's lists is number 10. Okay, I love that movie. So, I mean, there's no shame in being 7, 8, 9, 10 on the list of best Christopher Nolan movies. But I'm surprised I haven't seen any that have the Odyssey near the top. So I'll give you my list tomorrow. So you'll have to hold your breath on that because I can't do it without seeing the Odyssey, obviously. The movie to beat for me would be The Dark Knight, the one with Heath Ledger as Joker. I feel like it's a little unfair because I love Batman and the Batman movies so much. I almost feel like it should be in a separate category. Well, of course, the Batman movies. And then how about everything else? But for me, it's Dark Knight. I have Inception higher on my list than a lot of people do. I would put Inception number 2 on that list, and then I put The Prestige at 3. By the way, Prestige, shout out to Colorado Springs. It's where Nikola Tesla, played by David Bowie, is hanging out. So Colorado Springs gets a shout out in that movie. But that would be the top 3 for me. So we'll see if the Odyssey beats that. I don't know if it will. The question for myself going into it, is this going to be better than Oppenheimer? I think there's a chance I will like Odyssey more than Oppenheimer. Again, Christopher Nolan, they're all bangers. Love every single one of them. I even like Insomnia. I saw Insomnia a million years ago. Robin Williams, the bad guy. Sorry, spoilers, but the movie's like 30 years old, it feels like. Yeah, is Odyssey going to be better than Oppenheimer? I think my anticipation for Oppenheimer was greater than it is for the Odyssey. But we'll find out tonight. If you've seen it, let me know. Where would you put it? Or we'll have that conversation tomorrow. So be thinking. Christopher Nolan rankings. If you've seen the Odyssey or if you haven't, and just omit it and I'll give you where it is on my list. While we're on the topic of movies, the other big movie thing that's happening right now is that trailer for Doomsday, the new Avengers movie that's coming out in December. And that monologue, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, Thor does this monologue about how difficult Doom is or we think Doom. I don't know. You want to make your head spin, go down a rabbit hole and get these people who are much more into the comic books than I ever was, explaining to you why Doom is as powerful as he is and all this kind of stuff, and all the Easter eggs that they think are in there. It'll give you a headache trying to sort all of this out. But we think it's Thor giving a monologue or a rousing speech about how difficult it will be to beat Doom, but how great the payoff will be if they do. But a lot of people are remarking about how he's doing it with a lesser version of the Avengers. Right? Time has passed. I don't want to give out more spoilers, but things happen to a lot of the Avengers that came around initially. So it's kind of a different looking Avengers group. And what it reminded me of was Thor is like Nikola Jokic, and the Avengers as currently constructed is like the 2021 Denver Nuggets when they went up against the Suns. Remember Suns and 4 guy? Remember when we tried to convince ourselves that the Nuggets had a chance to beat that Phoenix Suns team despite not having Jamal Murray? And we were so mad at that Suns and 4 guy, and then he turned out to be, 100% spot on. That's what it felt like. Thor is Jokic, the remaining Avengers, Black Panther's sister, Ant-Man, the Fantastic Four, all these. That's the rest of the 2021 Denver Nuggets. And Doom is the Phoenix Suns. Doesn't look good. What I'm saying is Doom and 4. That's what my prediction for Avengers Doomsday is. We'll see if that comes to fruition. I have a strong feeling that I will enjoy the Spider-Man movie coming out in 2 weeks more than Avengers, but I'll be there. My boys would not let me miss it. By the way, one other movie thing, and then I want to go into something sports, but in kind of a bummer with some of the news today. But saw Toy Story 5 over the weekend. Yeah, Toy Story's lost its fastball. So, if you have young kids, you know of what I speak. Toy Story they should have been done a few movies ago. I'd miss that one if you can. If you have little kids, you have no choice. But if you have a choice, go see the Odyssey rather than Toy Story. And I haven't even seen the Odyssey, and I can tell you that that's probably a better bet for you. So that does it for Ryan's Hollywood Roundup for today. We'll reconvene tomorrow with the definitive Christopher Nolan movie ranking. But back to sports, and this sucks. Being in this business, and I'm not working at ESPN, but being in sports media, it is, the job security is just not what it is in other professions. But I know how difficult it is to get to certain levels and to get to a level like being on ESPN. For all of their faults, it's still ESPN. I feel for those who end up losing their jobs, even if I am not a particular fan of some of them. It's still, I understand how hard they worked, and to just have their career at the most prominent sports media company taken away in a flash. I feel for him. But the one that hit the most was Carl Ravitch. So Carl Ravitch was let go by ESPN. And I immediately go to my childhood. And the show that I watched and would tell everyone that it was my favorite show growing up, and it's probably why I wasn't very popular with the ladies, among other reasons, it was Baseball Tonight. Every night, without fail, I am locked in watching Baseball Tonight with Carl Ravitch, Peter Gammons, Harold Reynolds. It was the best. And obviously, Harold Reynolds moved on to MLB Network. Peter Gammons ended up retiring, but Carl Ravitch stuck around, and let there be some continuity. And ESPN hasn't been the best over the years in maintaining their level of quality when it comes to their coverage of Major League Baseball. But Carl Ravitch kept his level. He didn't lose his fastball, to use a baseball pun there. He was great. And so him being fired by ESPN feels like an end of an era and like a piece of my childhood that has gone away, because Baseball Tonight was everything to me. Every single night watching Baseball Tonight. Web Gems. Web Gems was one of the things from ESPN that became part of the vernacular. How many, you probably went out on the baseball field, anyone made a great play, Web Gem. So that stinks. There's some layoffs of people that maybe I wasn't the biggest fan of, or some that were just in and then now gone. But that one is the one that caught my eye, of the ESPN layoffs. But I saw a quote, I think it was Andrew Marchand, who does a great job covering sports media, had a quote from somebody at ESPN that I think is kind of a sobering thought here, that they're just like every other media company now. And you think about that, like there was a time where ESPN was like above everything. And it still has a tremendous amount of power. And it's still the place that most people go to if they're looking for sports programming. But maybe it's not the shining beacon on the hill as it once was. And they're as prone to, change in turnover as any media company. And somebody within ESPN saying like it wasn't that way. Like everyone would, anybody that wanted to come up in sports media wanted something at ESPN, to call games, to be a Sports Center anchor, to do something with ESPN. And now the cachet, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of gone as they continue to let good people go. And I can't speak to, what's going on at ESPN. Don't want to be too critical here, but man, letting go someone like Karl Ravech, that's a tough one. We'll take a break, come back, top of the hour, latest on you-know-who, and you will hear from former Denver Bronco, Super Bowl 50 champion TJ Ward, about his upcoming football showcase right here in Colorado Springs. So stay tuned for that. You're listening to Drive Time Sports on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR.